I have always wanted a universal camera to film my life, something faster and higher quality than an iPhone. Something that could capture cinematic footage while still being small enough not to draw attention. And I think that in terms of price to performance ratio, this camera is the best deal on the market. On top of that, it just looks cool. I had been thinking about getting a camera like this for a long time, and I finally bought one. This is my DJI OSMO Pocket 4, a small cinematic camera that anyone can afford. I own several cameras, but I have noticed that this one is becoming my everyday camera more and more each day for the following reasons. One of the reasons is its compact size. This camera is one of the few cameras with incredible stabilization, and it's the same size as my iPhone. It fits perfectly into this little pouch that came with it. Lately though, I had been carrying it in this other small bag because it also fits this tiny tripod. The whole stuff is still very light and compact. In the past, whenever I found myself in a beautiful location and only had my iPhone with me, I would always worry that I wouldn't be able to capture the place properly because I didn't have my big Sony A7 IV with me. Now this camera is always with me, and I am confident that both during the day and at night, in all kinds of places, I will always be able to quickly pull it out and capture all the beautiful shots I want in high quality. I'm also confident that when I start color grading the footage, I will be able to recover a lot of information because this camera records in 10-bit color. By the way, this camera has a pretty good built-in microphone. It's almost on the same level as the DJI OSMO Nano, so you can confidently record your voice with it. I usually don't record audio for my YouTube videos directly on this camera, but it's important for me to know if I ever need to capture high-quality ambient sounds, this camera won't let me down. I don't like dealing with extra gear, especially changing lenses. And I'm really happy that the Pocket 4 has a versatile 20mm lens. It's not so wide that it heavily distorts faces, and it's not too narrow even with 2x zoom. My DJI Nano has a 12 or 13mm full frame equivalent lens, which is extremely wide. Such a lens can work for landscapes, but for everyday vlogging it's simply too much. By the way, the 2x lossless zoom on this camera isn't really that lossless, but it's still nice to have. This camera also shoots in D-Log, and if you are color grading the footage like I am, the footage looks fantastic after the grading, and the dynamic range performs very well. If you compare footage shot in the standard color profile and D-Log, you will notice that skin tones look much more natural in D-Log. I will leave a link to the official LUT in the description. I also use this camera as a photo camera since it has a 37MP sensor and DJI signature film simulations, but honestly I don't think I will enjoy taking photos with it. I like being able to quickly pull out a camera, change settings and look through a viewfinder, you know what I mean. Compromises. We all know that no camera is perfect, and there are always trade-offs. For example, this camera has a very fragile gimbal head. If you carry it around without a case and without a protective cover, you will eventually break the gimbal. It's also not waterproof, so keep that in mind. Second, the screen isn't as large as I'd like. Sometimes it's difficult to tap the right spot and the display isn't bright enough. In bright sunlight, it can be hard to see what you're filming. Under the sun, it often feels like my footage is heavily underexposed, and I always want to increase the exposure. But when I get home and review the footage, I realize it actually looks fine. Third, the battery. I wish it lasted several hours of filming, let's say 4 hours. I bought the standard combo, and instead of an extra battery, the box included this tripod mount. I think it would be great if DJI made the camera slightly longer and fitted it with a larger battery while still keeping the tripod weight, so we wouldn't have to keep attaching this accessory every time we want to mount the Pocket on a tripod. Still, because of its size, it's much easier to carry around, and that makes you shoot more often. Before this, I mostly filmed on my iPhone using Blackmagic Cam, but it only supports electronic stabilization and ignores the lens OIS. optical image stabilization, which caused motion blur during sideways movement. The DJI has its own physical gimbal and in many situations is ever better than lens-based OIS. I also like that I can hand this camera to my wife and she can immediately start filming with it. So considering its price to performance ratio, this camera is a really good choice. I only bought this camera recently, but I have already captured so many shots that I couldn't fit them all into a single video. But I promise that someday I will make a video composed entirely of footage shot on the DJI Pocket 4. That's all for now, see you in the next video.